Hi everybody, I'm back. I know I was on vacation visiting my mom. I tried to get some reading done, but we were so super busy and kind of enjoying being together that I didn't get a chance to read that much. So I apologize if you're watching this real time. So today we're going to start with chapter 14, part 2. And we're still with Peter and Peter's perspective. I hope you're all enjoying the summer. It's going so fast. Too fast, actually. But let's dive in. My glasses. Got my new glasses too. Okay. Okay, they were, I believe, getting ready to eat dinner. Peter dropped his head to his hands. I let it happen. I didn't choose any of it, but I didn't fight it either. I don't know why I didn't fight it. Except, of course, he did know. When his father had first dropped the order about Pax, Peter had steeled himself and said, "No, I won't do it." But his father's eyes had flared with that flash of fire anger, and his fist hand jerked up, stopping only at the last split second to knuckle Peter's cheek in a gesture that carried enough threat to set Pax on the growling alert. So he did tell his father he wasn't going to let Pax go, and then his father basically went to hit him, pulled back the last second. Peter's own fists had come up, and the rage he felt at his father had scared him more than the threat itself. He heard his grandfather's words now. "Our apples don't fall far from the tree." He felt sick and afraid all over again. Now remember, we talked about that for my students. We've talked about idioms. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what that's saying is that they're all alike. And I think that scares Peter to think that he's has that anger like his dad does. He had heard his grandfather's words. Now, "Our apples don't fall from the tree," and he felt sick and afraid all over again. He dropped his gaze to the worn pine table to hide the shame headline he felt burning across his face. Vola reached over and cupped the top of his head with both hands. Peter froze. Except for an occasional attaboy, shoulder shake from his father, or a casual arm punch from one of his friends, no one had touched him since his mother. Well, that's sad. Vola paused, as though she knew he needed time, and then she pressed down firmly. It was a strange thing to do, but Peter didn't pull away, didn't move a muscle, didn't even draw a breath, because at that moment, her strong grip was the only thing keeping him from flying apart. "Well, that's over now," she said, "isn't it?" She rose. "I may not have your answers, boy, but I do know one thing, one true thing about you. You need food, a lot of it. You're 12. You've slept out in the cold, and you've got a bone to heal. I'm going to get that bone now. I'm going to set." See, that makes sense. I'm going to get that bone. I was like, wait, what? "I'm going to set that bone now. Then I'm going to start cooking, and you're going to start eating, and neither one of us is going to stop until you say so. Got it?" Peter's belly was suddenly a hollow, snarling crater. "Yes, ma'am, I've got it." Vola rummaged under the sink and drew out a sack of plaster. Peter watched her sift some into the bucket and then pump in some water. Then she brought over the thing she'd been sewing, foot up. Vola propped a pillow under his knee and worked a quilted sleeve over his leg, like an open-toed sock. He recognized the yellow checked material. He glanced into the bedroom to be sure. "You cut up your quilt?" "I can always make another one. You need the cushioning." Oh, so she cut up her quilt for him. See, now as a reader, you're always looking for like clues as to how characters are. Like deep down inside, there's a clue there, right? She's cutting up her own quilt for him. She took another section of the quilt and stripped the batting off, then ripped the yellow calico into strips and dunked them into the plaster. "Hold your foot at a 90-degree angle." And those of you that know your math and know your angles, a 90-degree angle makes like an L. Around and around his foot and ankle and halfway up his shin, she wrapped the strips. When she built a thick boot, she frosted it with more plaster. Don't move, not even your toes. Vola left for the porch and came back with her arms full. She set 2 iron skillets on burners, flipped a hunk of butter into each, and turned on the flames. She cracked a couple of eggs into a yellow bowl and started whisking in milk and then cornmeal. A cool breeze, fragrant with turned earth and frying butter, lifted against Peter. He looked at the sturdy cast drying, his foot safe inside now, wrapped in what used to be Vola's quilts. I'm sorry about how I've been. He tipped his head to her bulletin board. My philosophy bingo cards, she said with a nod. No bat, Peter. Those are just things I figured to be true about the world. The universals. The important ones are the things I figure out to be true about me. I keep them somewhere else, private. How come? How come they're the important ones, or how come they're private? Peter shrugged. Either. Both. He leaned back, waiting. Vola eyed him as she sawed a slice of ham joint and forked it into one of the frying pans. She dipped out 3 ladles of batter, poured them sputtering into the other pan, and then set the bowl down. I'm going to tell you a story. When I got out of the service, I didn't remember a single true thing about myself. Now, when she says got out of the service, that's the military. I didn't remember a single true thing about myself. That's what training does. No more individuals, just pieces that they can mold to their machine. I was lost my first day as a civilian. Lost. I went into a grocery store and I stared at all the choices, and I kept wondering who I was supposed to be buying groceries for. What filled this person's hungry belly? Gumbo or pie? Beans or bread? In the produce aisle, I broke down because I couldn't remember a single thing about myself. Vola went quiet then, and her eyes closed. What happened? Peter nudged after a moment. What happened? In the store. What happened in the store? Oh. She turned back to the stove and flipped the Johnny cakes. Peanut butter? Peanut butter happened? Vola tossed her hands in the air. Peanut butter happened, and I was lucky it did. There I was on the floor of the grocery store, dirty, red and white, checked linoleum. I will never forget, weeping, and I knew I wouldn't get up until I remembered what kind of food I liked. Vola stacked the Johnny cakes on a blue plate and then paused. Peter thought she might be drifting back to the memory of the grocery store floor. He was glad he hadn't seen something like that. A grown woman sobbing on a dirty grocery store floor. A crazy lady with one lost leg. He felt suddenly protective and hoped that no one had laughed at her and that she had gotten herself out okay. And finally I did. I remembered my grandmother telling me that when I first discovered peanut butter sandwiches, I wanted one every day. So I got up from the floor and I bought myself some peanut butter and bread. I filled my cart with peanut butter and bread because I decided I wasn't coming back until I knew for sure something else that I liked to eat. And I was afraid that might be a long time. She added the ham to the plate, slapped on a scoop of applesauce, and brought it over to him along with a white pitcher of maple syrup. Eat. Peter flooded the plate with syrup and loaded a fork. The cornmeal had a gritty crunch. The ham was smooth and salty against the sweet syrup. It was the best food he could remember eating. And was it? He asked when he cleaned half the plate. A long time before you remembered something else? Vola pressed a finger to the drying cast. Almost set. Keep still a while longer. She went back to the stove and carved more ham and ladled more batter into the skillet. It was people around me. They called it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from being in the war. And they were right that I was sick. But I knew it wasn't being in the war exactly. It was that in the war, I had forgotten everything that was true about myself. Post-traumatic forgetting who you are disorder, that's what I had. My grandfather was in a nursing home by then, and he was dying. I went out to his place. It had been my old home, too. My grandparents raised me for a couple of years to clean it out. It was the end of summer. The orchard was an untended mess, but there were still some peaches hanging on. And that was the second lucky thing that happened to me after the peanut butter, because I suddenly remembered, Lord, I had loved those peaches. I used to sneak out in the middle of the night to pick them. I'd sprawl on the grass underneath those trees with fireflies flashing all around and katydids singing, a heap of peaches in my belly, and I'd eat them till the juice ran into my ears. I remembered that so clearly. I could smell that memory. I could hear it and I could taste it. But I couldn't figure out how that girl could be the same person who had put on a uniform, picked up a gun, and done the things that I did in the war. So I reached up and picked one of those peaches, and I laid myself down on the grass and bit into it. And there I was. I found another little true piece of my old self. She brought the skillet over and stacked more Johnny cakes and ham onto his empty plate, then went back to the stove. Stop, Peter said. Stop? Well, that's the end of the story anyway. No, I mean, this'll be enough food. Thank you. Peter wished again that his fox were under the table and wondered again if Pax was hungry. And then had the curious sense that he wasn't. That tonight, at least, Pax had food in his belly. So then what? He asked after loading his fork. You were okay? So that I'm going to stop for a second because that's interesting. He kind of feels within himself, gets a sense that Pax is okay at the moment. And we know that he is, right? Because the chapter before that, little Runty, remember, he had hunted and got all those eggs for him. Remember that? Vola set the skillet in the sink and came back to sit across from him at the table. What a person likes to eat. That's a detail. I was so lost. I needed to find out all the true things about myself. The little things to the biggest of all. What did I believe in at my core? Peter figured he knew what was coming. Like war. Now you're anti-war, right? Vola steepled her finger under her chin. That's a complicated thing. What I am is for telling the truth about it, about what it costs. People should tell the truth about what war costs. That's taken me a long time to figure out, she leaned back. And that was just one thing. I had to relearn everything that was right and wrong for me. But I couldn't. The world was too loud for me to hear myself think. So I moved into my grandfather's place. I decided to stay there until I knew who I was again. Peter looked up at the jarred peaches on the shelf above him, then recalled the blooming trees in the orchard. And you're still here, he said. This is the place, isn't it? And so that is actually the end of chapter 14. Really interesting because we get to know a little bit more about Vola, and we know that she did fight in the war, but we also know that she has this post-traumatic stress disorder, which a lot of soldiers get when they come back from war, because it's a very stressful situation and environment. And sometimes they have a hard time fitting back into home life. And so what she did was she moved away from everyone, and that's why she's living where she's living. It's her grandfather's place. Yeah, so I like Vola. Do you like her? Let me know. I know that you can't comment here, but you can all, if you're on TikTok listening to the Read Aloud, you can. Let me know if you like Vola and what you like about her. And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, send me an email at positivepowernation@gmail.com and let me know, what are your thoughts about Vola? Do you like her? I do. All right, guys, so next chapter will be chapter 15, and that will be from Pax's perspective. Have a great night. I'll see you soon. Bye.